I am hungry for float knowledge and for some real food too. That's why I have daily solutions and also some steam buns. Daily solutions. Get those steam buns. Yum, 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 yum. In my tummy, tum, tum. And my brain. Hey everybody, this is Ashkahn here. We have a slightly different episode for you guys today. Instead of doing our normal thing of answering questions, I am here with one of our Float Conference speakers, James Nestor. We just did an interview over on our Float Conference podcast, and we thought we'd ask one more little bonus fun question to air here on Daily Solutions. Okay, James, welcome to our Daily Solutions podcast. Thanks for hopping on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we just did an interview over for our Float Conference podcast, but I had kind of one other question for you that I thought would be fun to air here. You had done this work in your book about free diving, and like we discussed, you'd come across John Lilly in this kind of other direction, not through the lens of floating, but through the lens of his dolphin research, which arguably I think he's almost better known for, at least in many circles, than any of his float tank stuff. And in the float industry, we get to hear a lot of cool stories about John Lilly and float tanks and know a lot about that history. And I was just wondering if you came across any interesting John Lilly dolphin stories in your research that you think would be fun to share.
Oh, there's too many. But one in particular I thought was pretty fascinating was when he had set up the communications research project in the Bahamas. He, this was a sweeping laboratory, huge with different pools and different rooms and all the modern technology at the time. He built this dolphin telephone system that allowed two dolphins to talk to one another in separate tanks across the laboratory. And it was very interesting because dolphins have two different modes of communication. They have these whistles and these buzzes. They're called clicks. And so the animals would have these interactions, and he recorded them, and he found what he thought was two different completely formed languages. One, that they could hold these simultaneous conversations on these two different frequencies, and they would never ever talk over one another. And it got to the point when when he started getting really nervous. I think this is one of the reasons that he shut down that whole program, was when every time he would press the recorder, the dolphins would talk a bit and stop. And they would stop at the same exact time. And he was certain that they knew when he was recording and when he was eavesdropping on them. Wow. And he started to think that perhaps they were, plotting their escape. And what's really interesting about his research is the early stuff he was doing, all of it was published in the top scientific journals at the time. These things were published in Science and in Nature. And he was really considered the preeminent dolphin communication researcher. And, it's only later in his years when he started doing some more wacky stuff that reputation was a bit stained. But all of that early work is phenomenal. And to me, it's the most interesting interspecies communication research that I've ever come across.
Yeah, and still surprisingly referenced. I mean, I went and saw a talk from a current dolphin researcher a few years ago. There's a little guest lecture here in Portland, and she was referencing John Lilly's work, and it's still a big part of that entire field of research. It really did seem like a huge piece of the foundation for all of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that so much of that communication research both went away and went underground. The Navy has been doing tons of it. They continue to do dolphin communication research. We just don't have access to it. So maybe they've carried on where Lilly left off and they've continued to develop this, but I don't think we'll ever know. He was just at a place in time where he had money, he had equipment, he had all the resources he needed, and very few ethical quandaries in his research, to just do whatever he wanted to do. And, that was both good and bad. It was bad for the dolphins because a few of them committed suicide in his presence because they were so miserable. But, scientifically speaking, it's, provided a foundation upon which so many researchers have built their own communication research initiatives.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely near the end of his life. One of my favorite John Lilly stories is him trying to form the Cetacean Nation and actually have a seat for cetaceans in the United Nations to give them rights.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love that idea, but this is the sort of stuff that really put dolphin communication research, in the trash bin for a while, at least in academic institutions, because, Lilly was trying to figure out how to televise dolphin ballets and dolphin pop songs. And, when scientists heard that, they just kind of threw out all of his research. And luckily now people have gone back through it and have looked at that early stuff and realized just how groundbreaking and legit it actually was.
Yeah, I bet it was surprising for him too. I mean, there's like a section in programming and metaprogramming, his book, one of his early books, where he's doing some of his early dolphin research, and there's like a chapter in there that's literally just a plea from him to the scientific community to have other people researching this. That's like the whole chapter is just him being like, there's some crazy stuff going on here, and more people need to be researching dolphins and dolphin communication. And it was him just like trying to get that out there. So, at the very least, it's been nice to see that work has continued. I mean, there's definitely some ongoing, continuing dolphin research, especially around communication, that's been happening and proving really, really interesting. And like a I don't know, everything I read about it shows a kind of development of language that we don't usually see in other areas of the animal kingdom.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, he was a true scientist in that sense where, science is supposed to be the exploration of the unknown, and other people are supposed to test this stuff. And for people to make up their minds and make assumptions about things that they've never tested, I think is just so ridiculous, and it was part of this that got me personally so interested in cetacean communication. And I'm working with David Gruber now, who's a Harvard fellow, and we have put together, it's mostly him, he's doing all of the academic work here. We're now looking at all of these huge database of sperm whale clicks and using machine learning algorithms to try to crack into the whatever language code is within there. And we're hoping in the next 6 months, we're building a machine right now, and we're going to probably be going to the Mediterranean to record clicks in a fidelity that they've never been recorded before, and then to try to figure out what these animals are saying with AI and machine learning. And what's amazing is I'm a journalist, right? I'm not a biologist. I'm not a scientist. Like, what business do I have doing this? But the fact is, nobody else is doing it. And there's so much technology now that we have that Lilly did not have that can make all of this translation automatic. You put it in a computer, come back the next morning, and it's all figured out, and nobody's doing it. And I just find that that's pretty offensive, but we're really excited. And the one good thing about it is the reaction we've gotten from some of the top guys at Harvard and MIT, real engineers and scientists who have looked at these clicks and are just saying, obviously, there's something very profound and interesting going on here. And hopefully, soon we'll be able to tell everybody what that is.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'll have to check back in 6 months and hear what the results are.
I'll be speaking dolphin by then, so maybe we could have the conversation that way. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks so much, James. Nice to have you on here, and excited to see you at the conference in just about a month.
Thank you. See you soon.
All right, if you guys out there have more float tank questions that you want us to answer here, you can always send them in to us at floatanksolutions.com/podcast. If you want to hear a longer interview with James Nestor, you can hop over to our Float Conference podcast. That's at floatconference.com. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.